These aren't scenes from dystopian fiction. They're real. Real people. Real trauma. Real lives lost. From the firelit riots of Woodstock '99 to the harrowing crush of Astroworld. These are not just moments of tragedy. They are turning points that force the world to reckon with how we gather, how we protect each other, and how quickly joy can turn to horror. Some disasters began with a spark, others with silence. But all of them could have, and should have, been prevented. This isn't a concert review, it's a historical reckoning. This is History 101. Let's begin. Woodstock, the festival that lost control, July 1999. Rome, New York. A military airbase turned music venue. The rebirth of the iconic Woodstock brand promised peace, love, and rock and roll. What attendees got instead was blistering heat, overflowing toilets, $4 water bottles, and rising fury. Held on concrete without adequate shade, the crowd boiled in 100-degree weather. People fainted from dehydration. Medical staff were understaffed and overwhelmed. Over 700 people were treated for heat exhaustion on the first day alone. As Limp Bizkit played Break Stuff, that's exactly what the crowd did. Plywood was torn from scaffolding, fires were lit, and vendors looted. By the end, vehicles and trailers were burned to shells. Control disintegrated completely. But far worse was what happened in the shadows of the chaos. Dozens of women reported disturbing experiences, many unfolding in plain sight. One was dragged into a mosh pit, surrounded and forcibly held as others stood by or filmed. Another was overwhelmed during Korn's set in what witnesses described as an aggressive group incident. What unfolded reflected a toxic environment of unchecked behavior, amplified by alcohol, crowd frenzy, and a total lack of control. Despite numerous eyewitnesses and disturbing footage, only a handful of arrests were made, with fewer than 10 people charged in connection to any violent crimes over the weekend. A grand jury was convened to examine the security breakdown, but no festival organizers were ever charged. Woodstock '99 didn't just fail logistically, it revealed the dark side of youth culture in the late 1990s, where rage, profit, and misogyny collided in catastrophic ways. Fyre Festival, selling the fantasy, delivering a lie. In 2017, Fyre Festival was marketed as the most luxurious music event in the world. Supermodels, yachts, gourmet meals, private jets. It was supposed to be an influencer's dream. Social media lit up with sleek trailers and celebrity endorsements. Instead, attendees landed in the Bahamas to disaster relief tents, wet mattresses, no running water, and no performing artists. Flights were delayed. Some were stranded on the island, the catering, a slice of cheese on white bread. Founder Billy McFarland and rapper Ja Rule had no real infrastructure. Local workers went unpaid. Security was non-existent. When the storm of backlash hit, McFarland was already facing lawsuits. He had sold VIP packages worth thousands, without securing talent, permits, or logistics. He defrauded investors and attendees, collecting money through prepaid bracelets, raising millions under false pretenses. In court, it was revealed McFarland lied to cover growing debts and knowingly pushed a doomed fantasy.
We just burned all of our money.
He was convicted of wire fraud and sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. More than $26 million in restitution was ordered. No one was physically harmed at Fyre Festival, but the financial and emotional trauma endured by local workers, attendees, and investors remains a warning of unchecked hype and hollow marketing. Altamont Speedway free concert, Death at the Edge of the Stage, December 6th, 1969. Altamont Speedway, California. What was intended as the West Coast's answer to Woodstock quickly spiraled into chaos. The Rolling Stones, eager to connect with fans, organized a free concert featuring Santana, Jefferson Airplane, and others. But problems began immediately. The stage was far too low. Fans could reach it. No proper barricades were in place. And the most alarming decision, hiring the Hells Angels motorcycle gang as security, reportedly paid $500 worth of beer. As tensions rose throughout the day, violence broke out repeatedly. Members of Jefferson Airplane were punched on stage. Fights erupted in the crowd. As the Stones began performing, 18-year-old Meredith Hunter attempted to approach the stage. He was shoved back, pulled a revolver, and was immediately attacked by Hells Angel Alan Passaro. Passaro stabbed him multiple times in full view of cameras. Hunter collapsed and died at the scene. The Stones, unaware of the incident's severity, continued playing Under My Thumb. The moment was captured in the documentary Gimme Shelter, forever memorializing the violent unraveling of 1960s idealism. Passaro was charged with murder, but was acquitted in 1971 on the grounds of self-defense. Dozens of fights and injuries were reported that night. Multiple arrests were made for drug possession and assault, but the overall lack of law enforcement presence left much of the damage unpunished. Love Parade, 2010. The Tunnel That Turned Deadly. July 24th, 2010. Duisburg, Germany. The Love Parade had moved from city to city for decades, celebrating electronic music with floats and free performances. But in 2010, Duisburg officials approved a much smaller venue, a former freight yard surrounded by fencing, accessible only through a single tunnel. Despite the confined space, over 1 million people arrived. Around noon, both incoming and outgoing crowds were forced into the tunnel at once. Panic spread as people were crushed, pushed, and trapped. Police and medics failed to enter the crowd in time. Screams echoed in the tunnel. Some victims were trampled, others suffocated. By the time control was regained, 21 people had died. More than 500 were injured. Criminal investigations followed. 10 event organizers were put on trial for negligent manslaughter. But after years of legal battles, all charges were dropped in 2020 due to the complexity of the case and concerns about extended trial durations. The Love Parade was never held again. It remains one of Germany's worst peacetime disasters. Indiana State Fair, 2011, a stage unfit for storms. August 13th, 2011, Indianapolis. Thousands gathered to see country duo Sugarland perform, but ominous skies loomed overhead. The National Weather Service had issued severe storm warnings, with possible hail and winds exceeding 60 miles per hour. State Fair officials debated canceling or delaying the show. Instead, they opted to proceed, offering vague announcements about shelter options. Then, at 8:46 p.m., a violent gust hit the stage rigging. The stage collapsed in seconds. Steel and lighting equipment slammed into the crowd. Chaos erupted as people ran for cover, screaming. 7 people were killed. More than 50 were injured. The incident shocked the nation. Investigations revealed the stage structure hadn't been properly inspected or certified for wind resistance. Emails showed officials were aware of the risks. In 2014, the state of Indiana and the companies involved settled lawsuits for over $50 million. While no one was criminally charged, the event reshaped industry safety standards. Astroworld 2021. The Stampede that no one stopped. November 5th, 2021. NRG Park, Houston, Texas. Over 50,000 fans gathered for Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival. Even before the gates opened, fans began storming barricades. People fell. Security was overwhelmed. The signs of trouble were already there. As night fell, crowd density intensified. When SZA's set ended, the audience surged toward the main stage. By the time Travis Scott began his performance, thousands were packed shoulder to shoulder. Breathing became difficult. Some collapsed. Multiple fans attempted to stop the show. One fan later said, "I felt like I was drowning in people." Despite pleas, the music continued. At 9:38 p.m., officials declared a mass casualty event, but Scott continued until 10:11 p.m. By the end, 10 people, including a 9-year-old boy, were dead. Over 300 were treated for injuries. Hundreds of lawsuits followed. Live Nation, Travis Scott, and security contractors faced claims of gross negligence. While criminal charges were not filed against Scott himself, others involved in planning and security were investigated. Documents later revealed that staff had flagged crowd control issues hours before the event began. The tragedy exposed how commercial interests overrode urgent safety concerns, with no clear chain of command during the unfolding disaster. Time Warp Argentina, 2016. Rave turned toxic. Buenos Aires, April 15th, 2016. The Time Warp Festival was known for cutting-edge electronic music, but this year, organizers allowed over 20,000 people into a venue built for half that. Inside, air circulation failed, temperatures soared, water stations were missing. Bottled water cost more than $10. Many turned to synthetic drugs. Within hours, several attendees collapsed. 5 died that night. Dozens more were hospitalized. Security blocked exits. Medical response was delayed. Bathrooms were locked. Witnesses described a suffocating environment with no oversight. A criminal probe uncovered that the venue was operating with false permits. Several organizers were arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter. The scandal rocked Buenos Aires, leading to the resignation of several government figures. The city immediately banned all large-scale electronic music festivals until safety reforms could be passed. Riverport Riot, 1991, Guns N' Roses and the Night of Fury. July 2nd, 1991, St. Louis, Missouri. Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose spotted a fan with a video camera in the front row. Enraged, he dove into the crowd, punched the fan, then stormed off stage. The band left the venue abruptly. Fans waited.
"Thanks to the lame security, I'm going home."
Then the crowd snapped. Chairs were thrown. Fights broke out. The venue was torn apart. Over 60 people were injured. Police were called to restore order. The riot caused more than $200,000 in damage. Police arrested over 15 people for assault, theft, and disorderly conduct. Axl Rose was later charged with inciting a riot, but didn't face jail time. The incident became infamous not just for the destruction, but for the volatile relationship between rock stars, fans, and authority. Manchester Arena bombing 2017. The attack that shattered a nation. May 22nd in 2017. Ariana Grande had just completed her final encore at Manchester Arena. Thousands of young fans poured into the lobby. That's when a 22-year-old terrorist detonated a homemade bomb. 22 people were killed. 800 were injured. Many victims were children, attending their first concert. The bomber, Salman Abedi, had been reported multiple times to security services. An inquiry revealed missed opportunities to prevent the attack. The arena had failed to act on warnings of suspicious behavior just minutes before the blast. Several people were arrested in the days following the attack, including Abedi's brother, who was later convicted for his involvement. The tragedy sparked one of the UK's largest counter-terrorism investigations. New safety protocols were introduced at entertainment venues across Europe. Manchester's citizens responded with unity, but the loss, especially of so many young lives, remains etched in the nation's memory. Roskilde Festival, the night the music didn't stop. June 30th, 2000, Roskilde, Denmark. Pearl Jam had just taken the stage at Roskilde Festival, one of Europe's most iconic live events. But as the music began to swell, so did the crowd. Tens of thousands pushed forward across the open field.
1, take a step back. 2, take a step back. 3, please.
The mud made it impossible to stay upright. One person fell, then another, then dozens. In the span of minutes, the front of the stage became a death trap. People were crushed so tightly they couldn't breathe. Pearl Jam played on, unaware that just feet in front of them, young men were dying. When they finally stopped the set, it was already too late. 9 fans lost their lives. Dozens more were injured. An official inquiry found no single person to blame. No one went to prison. But the tragedy changed everything. Music festivals across Europe were forced to overhaul their safety procedures. Pearl Jam nearly quit touring. The survivors still live with the trauma. The Who, the Stampede that killed 11 before the first note. December 3rd, 1979. Cincinnati, Ohio. They came to see The Who. They never even made it inside. That night, 18,000 fans crowded outside the Riverfront Coliseum in freezing December air. Doors were locked. General admission tickets meant whoever got in first got the best view. And when the band's soundcheck echoed through the glass, people panicked. They thought the show had already started. The surge came fast. Feet shuffled, bodies pushed. The crowd became a wall of pressure. People fell. They screamed, but no one could move. The glass doors stayed shut. By the time security unlocked them, 11 people were dead, crushed, suffocated. Their shoes left behind in piles, their final moments ignored by a system that valued access over safety. Inside, the band had no idea. They played the entire concert as planned. The venue never told them. Afterward, the city erupted in outrage. Investigations followed. Festival seating was banned in Cincinnati for decades, but no criminal charges were ever filed. It was one of the deadliest concert disasters in American history, and it happened before a single guitar was strummed. Big day out. The mosh pit death of Jessica Mikolik. January 26, 2001, Sydney, Australia. She was 16. It was supposed to be one of the best days of her life. Jessica Mikolik had come to the Big Day Out music festival with friends, a day of heat, excitement, and the chaotic joy of live music. But when Limp Bizkit took the stage, the mosh pit turned violent. The crowd surged forward, bodies slammed together, people pushed. Jessica was caught in the center, pinned, unable to move, unable to breathe. Security eventually pulled her from the crowd, unconscious. She was rushed to the hospital. She died 5 days later. Fred Durst, the band's lead singer, claimed he saw the chaos, claimed he tried to stop the show. But others said he encouraged the frenzy. Police had warned organizers about crowd safety before the event. Those warnings were ignored. A public inquest exposed the truth. Event staff hadn't done enough. Security had failed. Communication had broken down. And a teenager had paid the price. Jessica's death didn't just haunt a festival. It haunted a country. Australia was forced to confront how easily lives could be lost in the name of entertainment. Mosh pits were reevaluated. Safety standards reformed, but the loss remained. Every moment of joy carries the weight of responsibility. For every beat that moves the crowd, there must be a structure behind it, built with care, foresight, and accountability. Because when that structure fails, people get hurt, people die. These weren't isolated accidents. They were warnings. Warnings ignored. Organizers dismissed safety protocols. Security forces buckled under pressure. Artists played on, unaware or unwilling to act. And thousands of everyday people, fans, workers, volunteers, paid the price. What if someone had canceled the show? What if the barricades were stronger? What if someone had simply said, "Stop, History doesn't ask for perfection, but it does demand we remember. Remember what was lost, and what nearly changed everything. This is History 101.